Mogamu, Mogamu, me.
So I finally got to play Anthem hands-on, and I told you guys, once I got to play this game, I was going to give you guys my raw, unfiltered opinion on it. I was not going to hold any punches. Now, I know some people are saying that Mogamu was bought off by EA. I can guarantee you, if I was bought off by EA, my Instagram would look totally different. If you guys go to my Instagram and you see me flashing money and dancing with strippers, I'm bought off by EA. But until my Instagram looks like that, trust me, I'm not bought off by EA. This is my raw opinion. So I finally got to play the beta, and I got a lot of opinions on it. To just briefly sum this up, if you don't want to stick around, I think the game is amazing. With a big, huge but, you still shouldn't buy it, and you still shouldn't trust EA if you haven't already bought it. I think the way the beta went with the lag and the servers not coming up was a blight on EA that they didn't need. EA is in a position right now where they need to earn the trust of Anthem players or potential Anthem customers, and the servers not working is a huge blight on that, and that's fuel on the fire of people who say they don't trust EA and they won't ever buy an EA game. This is a chance to get people to trust EA by having the servers up on a product that people already bought, and they dropped the ball. Now, with that said, even though I think this is a huge dropping of the ball by not having the servers going, EA makes billions of dollars per year. There's no reason to not have scaled up servers working on day one, having as many servers going because people pre-ordered the game and they have EA access, but they didn't do it, and this looks totally bad on their part. I told you guys I'm not going to pull any punches. Now, with that said, is Anthem a good game? Heck yeah, man. This game is freaking amazing. This game is just the right amount of things that I definitely like. There is great combat. There are great abilities. The javelins themselves are pretty cool. I like the missions. I like the difficulty. There are tons of things about Anthem that I like, but also some things that I think that there is no excuse that they aren't working. So let's jump into it. Anthem is a third-person looter shooter. It borrows a lot from Warframe, Destiny, The Division. It is essentially like they took all of what they thought were the best elements of all of those looter shooter games, and they've compiled them down into a package that feels less like Warframe and more like Mass Effect Online. The abilities, the cooldowns, the movement, it feels a lot more like Mass Effect than any of those other games combined. Or maybe we should call it Mass Effect Offline because the servers didn't work. I've played about 8 to 10 hours of this, and I feel like my opinion on it is pretty solidified. Now, I know this is some weird beta review, and this does not represent the final product of the game. I do believe the build that we got is about 6 weeks old, so if you look at this and you estimate what they can accomplish in about 6 weeks, you probably can guess what the final game is going to look like. There are some things that I think are going to be really good when this game comes out, and there are some things that I think they can't fix in 6 weeks. We're going to talk about those things. So let's talk about the technical issues first before I talk about how much I like this game. The login issues are bad. Now, when I finally got on after about an hour of trying, the game actually run pretty well. The problem is lag. There's no way to know if the lag that exists in the free roaming environments is going to be there once the final game comes out. We have no idea if the login servers and the game servers are experiencing the same thing. And I can tell you the lag in the free roam is horrible.
It does depend on your abilities. Some abilities prime targets and others detonate them. Okay.
This game will not work with the quick movement and shooting and enemies and particle effects all over the place if there's any sense of lag. Lag will not work in a AAA game, and EA has made billions of dollars. They need these servers to be working and pristine like race cars. The servers need to work, and right now, the free roam servers are not good at all. And my other big complaint is mouse and keyboard. Now, the game feels amazing on a controller, but once you pull out the mouse and keyboard, things start falling apart, especially when it comes to the flight system. Yeah, the flying is weird. Like real weird. See what I mean? The flight system just does not work on mouse and keyboard. Now, from what I understand, the current build of the game, which is about 6 months up from what we see right now, has improvements with mouse and flying. But right now, if you use a mouse and keyboard and try to fly the javelins around, this thing is so clunky that it barely works. Now, while I really like the flight model, they're going for this Tony Stark Iron Man flight system, it does not work with mouse and keyboard. The devs have said that the game is just a better experience on a controller. But I'm going to be honest with you, man, this is no excuse. Warframe, Destiny, The Division, all of these games work perfectly well with a mouse and keyboard. There's really no excuse to say that the better experience is on controller when the developers really just need to batten down and make the PC version of this game work with the correct peripherals. There's no excuse for that. And it gets even worse when you're in water. It's bad enough when you're trying to fly with mouse and keyboard around, but once you get into the water, it falls completely apart. It does not work. Now, with that being said, the mobility of this game is amazing. Once they get the mouse and keyboard down, because I am stubborn, I'm not going to go to a controller. Once they get the mouse and keyboard down, I think the mobility in this game is really, really good. I think the dashing, the flying, the hovering, the engaging and pulling out of combat. When I first started playing the game, I felt really locked into the way Warframe plays, and I found the javelins very clunky, especially some of the heavier ones like the Ranger and the Colossus. But once you get into the Storm, and I even saw some gameplay of the Interceptor, once you really get used to this combat, it really opens up, and I feel like it's just as mobile as games like Warframe once you get a sense of the controls and what the javelin is capable of. Before long, you'll be jetting around the battlefield, hitting enemies, pulling out, getting back into combat, and it feels really fluid and really quick, while also having the weighted feel of moving a mech around, and it's really impressive the way they pulled that off. But god dang it, man, fix the mouse and keyboard, because that's not going to work on full launch. Now, let's talk about the 3 game modes, because I did get to play all 3 of them. The 3 game modes are Campaign, Free Roam, and Strongholds. So right now, the Campaign is pretty standard. I think it's got a high quality of voice acting, with the graphics and even the facial animations, if you could believe it, aren't terrible. It definitely feels like they're pulling you into the story. Did it really pull me personally in? It had some interesting points that I feel like they can really evolve on and tell a really good story.
Matthias? Was this new? Incredible. Shove off, Hansi.
But pretty much it was so little in the demo that I can't really give you guys a good idea of how good or bad the campaign is going to be. I'm just going to say I'm hopeful for what I saw, and I think there were some moments that had some really good delight and it piqued my interest. Now, from rumors, I've heard that the final campaign of the game can be somewhere upwards of 30, 40, or even 50 hours with side quests. So will the quality stay consistent across all the campaigns? Dude, I have no idea. And again, this is something that you're gonna have to wait to buy the game to actually see people talk about the campaign. The gameplay of the campaign is standard missions. You go in and out, you run missions, you talk to an NPC here or there. There are even puzzles. The puzzles are fairly easy once you get an idea of how the puzzles work, but it did take me out of the game just a little bit. But that's just me personally. I'm not into puzzles. Now, let's move from the campaign to the free roam, because I wanna talk about Stronghold later. Let's get free roam out. Free roam is everything I would expect from an open world looter shooter. It could be fun and it could be a mindless grind. So you go out into the free roam and you could do basically anything you want. You can kill enemies, you can do world events, you can grind resources, you can upgrade your gear. There are rare gear drops out there in the world, which really shocked me, but it's exactly what you expect. It's a nice big open world, which still feels empty. Even though there are some world events that come every now and then, they don't come often enough. Even they didn't really come often enough in the beta itself. I don't want to judge free roam too much on the combat and enemies and stuff because we don't really have an idea of the scaling of the game yet, but I am a little worried because every looter shooter tends to have an open world that feels a little weak and empty, and I haven't really felt the trend breaking here, but I'm still optimistic. Now, as far as traversing the open world, it's not as open as you would think it is. It's very corridor, it's very on rails, and you can't just fly anywhere. For instance, if you fly straight up, the game just crashes you back down. There is a very low ceiling. It does have some nice verticality with cliffs and being able to stand on top of some of the vegetation, but it's very much like a corridor, and if you're trying to get from one area to the next, you have to have an idea of where the openings and caves are. You can't just fly to that area like you would see in some other open world games. I will say that what I did like about the free roam is it did give you a better sense of the combat and the way the javelins work, because when you just get pushed into a stronghold with a javelin that you don't know how it works, the free roam was a better place to learn it. So that was helpful. The real meat of this game, especially for people who are looking for a challenge and or are looking for gameplay, something to really dig their teeth into, is gonna be the Strongholds. Now, we had access to one Stronghold in the VIP demo, and this is the meat of the game as far as I can tell. There are some easy parts of it if you set it to easy, but if you set it to a more difficult game mode, this is going to be something that I really think is going to occupy your time. Think about Nightfalls and Destiny, and that's essentially what you have with the difficulty setting. Enemies are tough and they're going to engage you in a way that will kill you if you're not careful. You're going to need to understand how tanking, how killing enemies, how your damage system works, how you need to prime enemies and then kill them if you want to survive this, because enemies are bullet sponges and you don't have a lot of ammo, and you really need to know how to deal damage, how to debuff enemies, how to kill them, and how to really bring those enemies down, or you're gonna have a tough time. Now, that could be a good thing or a bad thing because you're really gonna split people. On the casual side of things, things like Warframe, you're really gonna find players that just wanna zone out and play the game and just roam around and not really hit any wall of actual difficulty or having to think about the game. And they might not like this. But gamers who actually want a challenge, they actually want to be engaged with the game, I really think you guys are going to love this because it forces you to actually play. You have to engage with enemies. You can't just mindlessly stomp through a dungeon that's more difficult than the gear you have. Now, if your gear matches up with what you're fighting in the dungeon, then it's pretty much standard fare and it's not too difficult. And I think you can kind of find a middle ground between difficulty and just relaxing and having fun. But man, I think the meat of the game is going to be in the Strongholds, and I really hope that's the direction they go, especially with in-game. A lot of these games don't do in-game well, and if Strongholds could be really good in-game content that keep players coming back to grind gear and improve themselves, I think Anthem really has something with Strongholds. Now, I want to go to combat because this is really what I think is going to separate this from a lot of other games. So we've got 4 javelins. We've got the Ranger, the Colossus, the Storm, and the Interceptor. They're all very different. Even in the way they move, each javelin has different melee, different movement systems. The Colossus is a lot more sticky. It's really like your feet are in concrete. And then you get to something like the Interceptor and the movement of the game really opens up. And that's because the javelins are so different. I think the Colossus really has to be in the middle of the fight, really engaging enemies and pulling aggro. And the Interceptor and the Storm have to be really moving around and making sure they're focus firing enemies and get those enemies' health down. And when I first started playing, I was really on the fence about the way the combat worked with the javelins because they were so different, but I can tell you, a few hours in, the javelin gameplay really opens up, moving around, killing things, casting abilities. Now, there are times where you feel like you may be out of ammo or your guns are reloading, but that's because this game really depends on its abilities. If you aren't spamming abilities, the abilities have really low cooldowns, and if you aren't spamming them, you're really going to run out of ammo. This is a very ability-driven game, and once you get a hang of moving around with javelins, casting abilities, make sure you're rotating your abilities, priming, and detonating enemies the way the game wants you to do it, the game really opens up in a way that I think really works. And this is something that I feel like I'm going to enjoy now that I'm starting to get the hang of how the combat actually works and how Bioware wants you to play this game. It has a bit of rhythm to it. Now, what I want to talk about finally is in-game and the long-term viability of this game, stat rolls, things like that. You can, in this game, create loadouts, builds, you can build weapons, and you can really set the loadout of your javelin. This is where I think the longevity of the game is going to come through, the reason to log in every day, because when you set these loadouts, you can build your javelin in a very custom way. If you want to build a nuke type javelin, you can do that. If you want to build a javelin that debuffs and primes enemies in the higher level content so you can actually kill them, you can do that. If you want to build something that's tanky and stoic, you can build a defensive ranger or a very defensive colossus to really tank and keep your teammates alive. You can even do that. You can even re-roll that gear to get better versions of the abilities that you already have. Yeah, you may like that AoE ultimate ability and you have a common version of it, but then you go out into the world and you grind a rare version of that that has different stats on it, and all of a sudden the game opens up and you can modify your build based on that and create new loadouts. And I think that appeals to a certain type of gamer who wants to log on and grind every day and find the best gear. I've noticed there's been some pushback from the stat roll grinding in a lot of other games, but if that's what you're into, it seems like that's what's going to appeal to people when they come to Anthem. Now, it seems like I'm selling the game. Again, guys, if I was bought up by EA and you went to my Instagram, man, you're going to see me flashing money. You're going to see me doing push-ups with no shirt on, and you're going to see me on my yacht. I'm telling you, dudes, the EA check has not come yet. This is my honest opinion on it. If you ask me right now, should you buy Anthem if you're on the fence? My answer is still no. I think for the people who bought into the VIP demo and couldn't get into the game yesterday, that's a major black eye on the game and it's a major black eye on EA. And for that reason, I can't tell you to jump and go buy the game right now. But if you were to ask me, do I like Anthem? Am I going to play Anthem? And do I think that the final version of Anthem is going to be a good game? Heck yeah, man. From what I played, I enjoyed it. And this is definitely a game I'm going to be playing at launch. Right now, I don't personally regret my pre-order. I did pre-order this game so I could play it and review it for you guys and stream it. Twitch.tv/Mogamu, by the way. We had a really good stream yesterday. I pre-ordered it right now and I don't regret my pre-order. And as a matter of fact, I am super happy that I committed to my pre-order because the game I played, I totally enjoyed. But if you're on the fence, do not buy this right now. Wait and see the final version. And again, I'm going to tell you guys what I see in the final version. There's no EA check. If there was, you'd know it by now. Anyway, that's my opinion on Anthem. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Talk to you later.